Hello, everybody, and welcome to SportsBeat on WOUB. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Connor Mallon, your host for today. Joining me at the table,
Reece Merkel,
Cavin,
Luke Schmitt,
Jamey Spears.
And we've got some opening headlines as OU football opens conference play with a big win over Bowling Green. Meanwhile, soccer and volleyball compete through rough weekends, and field hockey pulls off the biggest upset we've seen across the Bobcat athletics this year, as well as college and pro football coverage before we conclude with the Upset Watch and our weekly awards. SportsBeat starts right now. Well, guys, OU football opened up MAC play with an absolutely fantastic win over Bowling Green, 35-20 at home. A big win in the big weekend for the Bobcats. Break it down for us, Luke.
Yeah, this was just a great game all around for the Bobcats. We got some things to talk about that they can work on, but, they did a lot well in this game. Their offense looked very competent. Parker Navarro, he had his mistakes. He had some turnovers. But stat-wise, he looked really great. 208 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. Really is the bulk of scoring for them on offense this game, which was, really nice to see, especially considering, Navarro had the injury concern at the end of OSU game. So it's good to see Mac play started. He looks healthy. He looks good. So I thought that was a really big gain for the team. And also just Mason Williams on offense was also a big factor in that win. He looked like he was Navarro's guy all day long. He led in receiving with 93 yards, 8 catches. And, we saw how in that game, Chase Hendricks has received a lot of national attention. Coaches are picking up on that. Eddie George, first-year coach, he knows his stuff. So he doubled Chase Hendricks in that game. He only had 1 catch for a touchdown, albeit. But, having guys like Mason Williams in that tight end room, having other options you can pass the ball to, that really helped the Bobcats open things up offensively.
And you really love to see the playbook really get opened up to the full extent, especially when you face somebody with a real offensive mind like Eddie George. Mm-hmm. So speaking of things that we can improve on for the Bobcats in the coming weeks, Reece, I know last week we talked about the front seven. How did the front seven deliver this week?
Man, this front seven, probably like the best game they had all year. Jay Crable, he had 3 sacks. The team as a whole had 5. They had 4 quarterback hurries, and then the front seven also had 7 out of 9 TFLs. I would say from the Gardner-Webb game to this BG game, the Bobcats front seven really did step up.
And Reece, I feel like, that Bobcats defense really kept them in that Bowling Green game. They never trailed once throughout the game. There were some ties a couple times where it got close, but they really came up when they needed to. There was a lot of turnovers on downs. There's a lot of punting from Bowling Green. And speaking of defense, OU's Cameron Holloway returned an interception, 71 yards for a touchdown to open the game. I mean, talk about a momentum swing to start the game at home in MAC play. Like, starting with that, that's what you want to start with. And Holloway, he had 8 tackles, 1 sack, and a tackle for loss. And it really just feels like every week there's just a new guy on this OU defense who has a monster game, who steps up. We've talked about Adonis Williams before. This week it was Holloway's week. I'm interested to see who can step up next.
And it's really great to see a different face be the one to step up every week, because there are so many teams that they rely on one guy to be their guy on defense or on offense. And we've really gotten to see OU spread the ball on both sides and really contribute quite well. So looking forward to Ball State, what does OU need to do to take them down?
Well, I would really like to see, obviously, Chase Hendricks get involved back in the passing game. He was doubled in that game. I get it. He is still 6th in the nation for receiving yards, which I thought was incredible considering he only had 25 in this last game. But I would really like to see Hendricks get back involved back in the game plan. C.A. Bangera, he had a great game against Bowling Green. Something we were kind of waiting to see all season was when he was kind of break out, be that big back he was in the 23-24 season. So getting both the rushing and passing game, equally involved in this Ball State game is going to be great. And this is a Ball State team that has looked kind of shaky. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity for him to break both those out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Luke, we kind of seen, like you just said, on defense, that one person's got to step up. We're going to have to see that on offense as well. We've seen guys from all over the offense and all over the defense step up, but with Chase Hendricks getting potentially doubled going into MAC play, we're going to have to see somebody else like Mason Williams that just had a huge monster game the week before. We're going to have to maybe see one of those performances from somebody else as well.
And Ball State is a team that has allowed 33.25 points per game this season and has not scored that well. They've played Purdue and Auburn, who they lost to by a lot, narrowly lost to an FCS team. So I think OU will be able to comfortably put them away and just start MAC play 2-0. I think that'd be huge for them. They got NIU after that, Eastern Michigan before Miami. So I really like the schedule for them because, they started off the season kind of with a tough slate. They had Rutgers, they had West Virginia, they had Ohio State. 3 really tough teams, all Power 4. And then you kind of get an ease into MAC play, which I really like for them. I like how you start off really strong and tough, and then you kind of get back to MAC play. So I like that for them.
100%. And besides guys like Mason Williams, who stepped up big in the Bowling Green game, we also saw a pretty good move out of Duncan Brune. And who else besides those guys would you like to see step up in games like the Ball State game?
I would like to see, I guess, more receivers step up. We've talked a lot about Chase Hendricks, but I would like to see, Rodney Harris get involved more. I don't know, but I like that Mason Williams was the leading receiver, but I'd also like to see more options, especially if Chase Hendricks is doubled. I would like to see, more second and third string guys get, more yards, more targets, just so that Parker has someone if Chase Hendricks is doubled.
And we know Parker has the ability to open up the playbook and get the ball down the field if he needs to. So it would be nice to see one of the second stringers. I mean, Ian Pugh, Rodney Harris, Dom DeWart, any of those guys taking a step downfield and getting open would be quite nice.
One thing that really stands out to me about this team this year is the fact that they're very good at responding when they get into the red zone. We've seen that work out really well for them in games like the West Virginia game and even the Rutgers game. A lot of the issues that happened with Rutgers were very self-imposed and special teams issues that got worked out. The big thing that Ohio needs to work on is not letting them get down the field to begin with. The front seven did really, really well in the pass rush this past week. It's the most complete game the defense has played all year long. But they were coming off a game where they gave up, 40-something points to Gardner-Webb, and then they turn around and give up 20 points to Bowling Green. Good effort, good turnaround, but the front seven's still not entirely there. You take one step forward in the pass game, but you're kind of taking a lateral step in the running game. They've got to find a way to stop the run. Not that Ball State's going to run the ball down their throats or anything, but, as MAC player opens up, you've got, teams like Toledo got running backs like Chip Trainum, down the road. They've got to, find a way to not only be able to, because when you're playing as a defense with 7 dudes in the air, 7 dudes lined up in the box, there's no reason that they should be getting gapped 20 yards.
Yeah, and we've seen them kind of take considerable steps in bringing down the point totals that the defense has given up. I mean, 37 against Ohio State, 35 against Gardner-Webb, 20 against Bowling Green. So I think Ball State's a pretty good opportunity for them to continue to hold defenses to low points. I mean, we've seen them do it against West Virginia. Mm-hmm. There's very good opportunity to run that back against a less of a challenge MAC opponent.
And I also think this Bobcat team has done a really good job, especially in that Bowling Green game, where if they commit, an error, a turnover, a penalty, they do a really good job of responding the next drive. They don't really get into a rut. They don't let that affect them, like we saw multiple times where, let's say, pull it up. So they threw a pick on one drive, forced a punt on the next one. They fumbled. They force a Bowling Green fumble. So it seems like almost every other possession, their offense and defense have really good cohesion and really, help the team not get into scoring ruts or defensive ruts where they allow a lot of points, which I think is going to be really big going into further MAC games.
Absolutely. And this will be a great opportunity for them to show a fully complete game. So, once again, Ohio football taking on Ball State at noon this Saturday. Moving on to soccer, they had a weekend on the road taking on both of the Michigan representatives in the MAC. So, Noah, let's hear the breakdown on how they fared.
Well, everybody loves when we get to go up against the directional Michigan schools. But Western Michigan is a tough task. It doesn't matter what year we're playing. They're defending MAC regular season champions. However, they hadn't beat Ohio since 2019, and that changed this past week. Second half started. The first half looked really well for the Bobcats, very good defensively. If there's one thing about an Aaron Rodgers squad, they're going to be defensive. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to try to find a way to make you make mistakes and capitalize on them. And they showed that. And then the second half started, and it's just a good drawn-up play. Western Michigan ends up taking it down the field, scoring it in the 5th minute of the second half. And there was no other way that Ohio could have responded. It was they're outshot 13-5, only 2 shots on goal for the Bobcats. That's not going to get it done.
Absolutely
They
not.
gave up 10 corner kicks to just 2.
Yeah.
Those numbers just do not match up well whatsoever.
And then, then they later on in the week they played Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan, not necessarily a great team, kind of a lower middle of the table team in the MAC. And Ohio actually outshot Eastern Michigan. It's not something that they usually do. That's not their kind of style of play. 17-10. Both had 5 shots on goal. But it didn't really matter because Eastern Michigan scored. Ohio conceded in the 75th minute. But Iro Fakinu did respond with a penalty kick in about the 83rd, 84th minute, tie things up. So I'm going to go on my soapbox here. I'm really not sure what's going on. This is the same Ohio that rattled off a bunch of wins at the end of 2023, that won the MAC tournament in 2024. This is largely the same team that we've seen for the last 2 years. I don't understand what's going wrong. If you remember, Connor, I know we talked about it a lot. 2023, when they snuck in to the MAC tournament as a 6 seed, we all kept saying, me, you, Darius, Shane, we're talking about this team is on the brink. They just need to find a way to generate offense and they'll make it. It's the same issue. It's the same issue they had a couple years ago. They are so good defensively. They are so good at creating shots. They have just got to be better at finishing those opportunities.
And Noah, the stats, they prove exactly what you just said. You look at the minute mark when these goals come in. That penalty kick in that Eastern game, 86th minute. If you keep going back in that Bowling Green game, 77th minute, and even further to Northern Kentucky, the 69th minute. So I just think this really shows that you have to come out and play. Like, you can't have a slow start where, all of your goals are really coming in that second half of the game. I think you really have to do a better job and emphasize, scoring early on so you don't get put in positions where, you're feeling forced, you're forcing shots because you're running out of time. And I think that'll really help them, I don't know, you said this has been going on for years, years that they can't really figure out scoring.
I don't want to discredit this team because this team is really genuinely so amazing defensively. I said this earlier today when I was talking about this segment with some of my buddies. I do think that there is not a more valuable player to a team than Celeste Sloma is to Ohio women's soccer. Celeste has broken so many records. She has really kind of set the standard for this team. And the defense responds. They don't give up a lot of goals. They've only given up, they've not given up that many goals. But the issue is that they've only scored 11 goals in 12 games. It's less than a goal a game. They are playing so well defensively. They've just got to find a way to match that intensity on offense.
Yeah, and we talk about setting the tone early, Luke. You mentioned that. Is it about more than just setting the tone early? Is it about immediately responding? Because we see the Bobcats, they're scoring late into these games. I mean, 75th minute. Is it about getting shots on goal, not just early, but immediately responding?
I wouldn't even say it's about responding because if you watch these games, you could see the fact that they are controlling the ball. They are doing what they want to do. They are literally doing everything they could possibly do to win a ball game. They are just not getting the ball past the goalkeeper. Sometimes that's just a slump. So it's the same thing that you see in every other sport. You look at baseball, a guy's struck out 10 games in a row. Or you look at golf and this guy has birdied 3 holes in a row. You know what I mean? Soccer is very similar in that aspect where you can have cold streaks that are just not unexcusable, inexplainable. And I kind of feel like this team is in that range, The Bobcats have Sonia Deering and Iro Fakinu that are just pretty solid offensively. The biggest issue with this offense, in my opinion, is the fact that obviously we've talked about how they can't finish as well as they should be able to. They just can't move the ball around. I think the leading assists, you can pull up the stats. I don't have them pulled up on me right now. I think it's 2 assists or something like that. I think they have 6 assists as a team all season long. That's not going to win a game.
Yeah, moving the ball like that is fundamental to getting the points on the board. I mean, when you're 7th in the MAC with 7 games to go, you have to respond quickly. So there's only one conference game left for soccer this week. Who do they got, Noah?
They got Ball State. Ball State is very, very similar to Ohio in terms of record and in terms of positioning in the MAC. They're actually a spot below the Bobcats. And it's a really, really good opportunity for Ohio to right the ship. They've had a little bit of issues here recently. tying or losing, and it's all by one goal if they are losing. But this is their opportunity to turn things around. You're sitting one game out of the MAC tournament, and this could bump you back up into it. But to do that, they're going to have to bottle up Addie Chester. Addie Chester is a hometown hero for Ball State. She grew up in Muncie, Indiana, and she leads the team in both goals and assists right now. So, she's going to have – she wears that cardinal with pride, and you see it on the field. So they're going to have to stop her in order to get things going.
Yeah, great opportunity for them to right the ship. Well, we're going to switch gears and move from soccer on to volleyball, who also went on the road this weekend to open up MAC play against Bowling Green and Toledo. So, Reece, you want to give us a breakdown on those matchups from this past week?
Yeah, Connor. So the Bobcats played BG last Thursday. First set, they won 6 rallies straight, but that really didn't faze the Bobcats really at all. Second set, they came out hot. They won the first 4 rallies. And the third and fourth sets, BG kept just racking up those rallies, not really letting OU catch up, and then they eventually took the match 1-3. BG's Amanda Otten had 30 assists and 13 digs in the 3 sets that they did play, which really did kind of help the Falcons take over that game. We talked about Bailey Blair last week. Great performance last weekend. Really wasn't on her A game this game. Against BG, Blair, her attacking efficiency ended up at 0% because of her 9 kills. She had 9 errors. Defensively, 0 blocks, only 5 digs.
Bit of a slower start through the first game for the past week. Were they able to flip their momentum against Toledo?
They play them out the day after, and that momentum was really just not there. They lost to Toledo in 4 sets. Toledo and OU, they were trading 3+ rallies in the first set. So OU did take out that first set from Toledo's reach. They won that first set 25-22. Really close margin. Probably want to get that down defensively. Second set, Toledo, they jumped out to an 8-0 start, which really has been the story of the season for the Bobcats. They struggled to carry the momentum from that winning set to the next. 15 sets. Statistically, in 14 games, they've only won 15. And then in 3 of those games, they have won back-to-back sets. So that really just, they get on that winning course in the first set, and then they can't reciprocate in the next one.
No, I know, whenever they started out the season, we weren't really worried at first because they played teams like Iowa State, Cincinnati, Ohio State, ranked Pittsburgh, Wright State. But, I feel like these last few weeks, we have a 3-2 loss against Maryland Eastern Shore. That was kind of a match we wanted them to win. We felt like they needed to win to kind of get their momentum. And then they're just now going into MAC play. Started off 0-2. I just feel like they're kind of losing momentum. They're not getting out quick enough. They're not building these rallies. And I just feel like, is it time to hit the panic button?
I would say so. I mean, defensively, they need to up their game. They need to get more blocks. They need to get more digs. Usually it's here and there, they'll have players who just stand out. This past weekend, they didn't really have anyone who stood out to me. Bailey Blair, she had that one weekend. And then, if she can just keep on stacking those weekends, I think the Bobcats should be in a good spot.
Yeah, I'm honestly definitely starting to worry about this team just a little bit. Looking at the MAC standings, obviously play just started. Everyone's either 2-0 or 0-2. But they're sitting dead last right now just because of their out-of-conference record, 2-12 overall. And just kind of comparing, this OU team to, let's say, the number 1 team in the MAC right now, which is NIU. This women's volleyball team for OU, they have more kills than this NIU team, but the stat that really stands out to me is that Ohio's committed 360 errors and the leading team has 280. So I think working on that number of errors is definitely something that this team has to work on because, the offense is there. We see kill-wise and assist-wise, they do a good job of racking those numbers up and beating people. But, those errors, it's just kind of hurting themselves. And I think, this team has a decent slate of MAC games coming up. A lot of chances to work those things out. You're not playing those out-of-conference giants anymore. You're playing opponents opponents you've seen before. And I think this stretch is really integral for them because you really risk sliding further down. You're already kind of sitting last in the MAC. And these next games really kind of determine where you're going to sit for the season, I think.
Yeah, the upcoming Bobcat Invitational is going to be a crucial time for them to kind of get their feet set. And this is a young team with a interim first-year head coach. You're looking at a lot of freshmen who are taking a lot of playing time. So there's definitely things that you have to worry about when you're committing that many errors and you're not really getting the offensive production that you want. So we have the home series that is the Bobcat Invitational. It's been about a month since Ohio volleyball has put a win on the board. They have 2 matches this upcoming weekend. What's up next for the volleyball team, Reece?
So they have Akron on Friday at 6 o'clock. This Akron team, they're 7-6 overall. Conference play, they're 0-2. They lost to both Miami and Ball State. Even though Akron was the home team, didn't really get that done. In the MAC, they are still statistically one of the best teams offensively. They have 2 players in the top 6 in kills per set in the MAC. OU, they need to be on their A game defensively if they want to win this game.
All right, so tough matchup for Ohio on Friday against that conference opponent. Who do they got on Saturday?
On Saturday, they got Buffalo at 4 p.m. Overall, they are 3-8, and then 0-2 in conference play. The game for the Bobcats, it's a very winnable game. Buffalo, really one of the worst teams in the MAC. They have 4 players with double-digit service errors, and that really is an area that the Bobcats can exploit. And then defensively, Buffalo's in the middle of the pack, which allows the Bobcats an opportunity to bounce back offensively.
Yep, so this is a great opportunity for Ohio to get back in the win column. Thanks, Reece. We are going to give field hockey the spotlight, as we haven't covered them much this year, but they pulled off quite a massive upset against an undefeated top-ranked team. So let's give them their flowers. They shut down number 11 UMass and won in a 1-0 shutout. Home opener for the Bobcats, a huge defensive performance as they held UMass scoreless, defending 12 shots, 3 of them on goal, as the Bobcats took 3 on goal and 1 of them scoring. It was a early fourth quarter score for Anouk Plen, who took the only score in the win over UMass. It's their second win of the season and the first victory over a ranked team in the field hockey program since 2012. So they've got 7 games left until the MAC tournament. What are we thinking for the field hockey team?
If they continue to play defense the way that they did against UMass, I don't see why this team could not make noise in the MAC. Mm-hmm. They ran into some issues earlier on in the year. They went out west. They played all over the country, and they ran into some trouble, playing like these. They're playing some big schools, like Stanford, I believe, at one point. So as they've, coming back and settling in, finally playing in Athens for once, you're going to see a switch flip. It's different flying all the way to California to, getting on a bus and going to Indiana.
Yeah, and we saw them take this great win over UMass, a really tight overtime loss over Central Michigan. Do you think this is going to be the momentum that they need to really set them up for MAC play? I
don't know how you couldn't make that momentum. I mean, you just knocked off a top 15 team in the country. And that's like it's not been done since 2012. Mm-hmm. They haven't beat anybody that good since 2012. You have to make that. Even if you don't win anything big, you've got to make that your motto, the Giant Killers.
Just 7 games left until the MAC tournament for the field hockey team. Best of luck to them as they round out the remainder of the regular season. And we are now going to move on to Major League Baseball. The playoffs are underway, and we've got a lot to talk about from the wild card games. Reds and the Dodgers had an explosive Game 1. Guards and the Tigers are tied up after 2 games. Boston and New York went the distance in Game 1, and the Cubs swiped an early one from the Padres. Jamey, break it down for me.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with the Guardians and Tigers. Really good 2 first games. We seen Tariq Skubal with 14 strikeouts, 7.2 innings pitched, and only 3 hits allowed. I mean, you're going to win 95% of your games if you pitch like that. And I know we've seen the Guardians, their last few, maybe 20 games, they've been probably the best. They've been the best team in baseball. There's no doubt about that, even coming from a Cincinnati fan. But I feel like they got their momentum back with this 6-1 victory today. They just hit the ball. I mean, that was the difference. They got out to an early lead in the first inning, 1-0, and then Detroit kind of battled back in that top of the 4th inning. They got another run, and then it was just that bottom of the 8th inning. 5 unanswered runs to finally close out the win. They had 2 errors on the day, but I just think it's really really good all-around game for the Guardians.
In this Guards team, I mean, what a turnaround. Like, they were kind of teetering around, 500 all season long, it felt like. A couple episodes ago, we were like, can they make it? Will this team be able to pull it off? And, I jokingly tell people, and I don't pay attention to MLB until October, but this Guards team is ready for October. Like, they've shown, that momentum. They're carrying it right into the playoffs, and I've seen so many similarities between this team and last year's team that had a really good postseason push. So I'm really excited to see if they can beat the Tigers.
Tom Hamilton said it best as Cleveland gets another October to remember. We've got Game 3 coming up, and I mean, like you said, Jamie, there was a fantastic 8th inning out of the Guardians. We saw Rocchio hit a homer, Schneemann doubled to right, Kwan doubled to, and Bo Naylor with an absolute blast. Who do we think is going to be the X factor or the difference maker in this final matchup for either of the teams between the Guardians and the Tigers?
I think it's going to be it's going to come down to Tigers pitching. I feel like if they can really get it explosive like they did with Tariq Skubal, they will win. I mean, that's just the plain. I feel like every time Tariq Skubal's out there, he wins them the game, and they're not going to have him for Game 3. So I really think that the Guardians are going to move on to the next round.
The big thing that's going to happen in Game 3, it's going to be a matter of whoever can put more runs on the board. That's how baseball works. But, both teams are going to have to turn to their bullpen. And the Guards' bullpen looks a little shot right now. They look a little bit tired. I don't know how they're going to be able to hold up. The Guards have better hitters than the Tigers do, but the Tigers have a way better bullpen. And if, they could get, 2 or 3 runs off the board just from pitching,
there are a lot of young guys in that bullpen, and it is going to be important to see who can step up on both sides of the ball. I got to name my X factor because we really haven't seen much of him this series, but I think it's time. I mean, they've walked him 3 straight times the last time they've seen him. I think it's time for Jose Ramirez to step up, and I have a great feeling about this Game 3. Moving on, we're going to talk Cubs, Padres. We've seen Game 1. They've got another matchup coming up. Jamie, how are they looking?
Yeah, the Cubs took early 1-0 series lead. We had Seiya Suzuki and Carson Kelly with back-to-back home runs, and they were down 1-0 going into the bottom of the 5th. They hit back-to-back home runs. That just gave all the momentum to the Cubs, and they really looked really good defensively, only giving up 4 hits. I mean, you like I said, pitching is the key to winning the playoffs. If you don't have pitching, you're not going to win, and that's just the thing. And we go to Game 2. Padres just took the early lead 1-0. In the 5th, they got 2 more, tacked on some insurance runs, and they were good defensively. And I know Noah's a Cubs fan, so I'm just going to let him take it away from here.
Well, I mean, you could look at Game 1, right? Something that a lot of people kind of overlook is the fact that the last 14 batters were gone. They retired 14 straight batters with the bullpen. All season long, a theme for the Cubs has been the bullpen is not great, the hitting is really good. It's kind of flipped as the seasons went on. The bullpen's playing out of their minds, and the hitting's kind of been lackluster. It looked like the Padres could have won that game 1-0, and that would have been it, because it didn't look like the Cubs were going to get a single hit until, Seiya Suzuki, Carson Kelly went back-to-back, and then that kind of flipped the game on its head. But then you look at the game from earlier today, the one that just wrapped up about 20-30 minutes ago at the time of recording. Completely different ball game. This Cubs team looked like they could not hit to save their life. Granted, Dylan Cease is an animal. He was dealing today. And the Padres bullpen is absolutely crazy. One thing I will say, as a Cubs fan, somebody who I don't want to see him lose right now, not in the wild card, Mason Miller is terrifying. He is throwing 104 miles an hour in the corner, and then will immediately follow it up with a 92-mile-an-hour slider that'll look like it's going to hit you in the face and drop in the same spot as the fastball did. He's unreal. I don't understand why Rob Manfred allowed him to go to the Padres at the deadline, but, I mean, I guess to each their own. He's too good to be facing the Cubs right now. He is so crazy.
Speaking of unbelievable pitching, Game 1 of the Yankees-Red Sox, Aroldis Chapman coming in clutch.
A little bit of trolling too at the end.
Oh, absolutely. He was doing some dangerous things to the Yankees. I mean, let's hear it. How did it go?
Well, Alex Cora wanted Garrett Crochet to just pitch an unbelievable game today.
Yeah.
And the best thing is Garrett Crochet told him, you're only going to need the bullpen for 1 inning. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Garrett Crochet, just unbelievable. 11 strikeouts, 7.2 innings pitched, only 4 hits.
Didn't he throw like 118 pitches or something like
Yeah,
that?
and 117. He was still pumping 100 miles an hour.
That's insane.
That is absolutely absurd. Especially, and then you just look at the offense. The offense in the later half of that game, the Red Sox just blew them out of the water. They had 2 runs in the top of the 7th, and then 1 insurance run in the top of the 9th to win 3-1. And I think the Red Sox are going to sweep the Yankees in the wild card.
That's quite.
It's not a terrible take.
Not a terrible take.
but-
I'm kind of here for it. I can't lie.
I love the fact that Aroldis loaded the bases and it was like, it's time to lock in. That was so funny.
Decided to really get stepped up. Speaking of absolutely stepping up, our last wild card matchup, the Dodgers. You just gulp into the mic,
Yeah,
Noah.
that was rough. That was a rough game to watch.
It was hard to watch the Reds fans last night as Shohei Ohtani does what Shohei Ohtani does best. As the Dodgers take Game 1 of the series against the Reds. I mean, what else can you say besides ouch?
I mean, I'm pretty sure Aroldis Chapman's probably happy. That's his former team. They lost. I mean, but Hunter Green. Hunter Green was supposed to be that X factor, and 60% of his runs given up this year have been home runs, and that's just the story of it because he pumps up 103 to right down the middle, and it's like you can't pitch that against Shohei Ohtani. He took one out in the first inning, and that was basically it for the Reds. I mean, there's no turning back. Teoscar Hernandez and Tommy Edman hit back-to-back home runs to kind of give them that cushion in the bottom of the third, and it was just all downhill from there. I mean, I think the Reds are going to lose to the Dodgers once again, and Dodgers will play the Phillies in the National League Divisional Series.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Hunter Green, you really, Shohei Ohtani, you cannot throw the same pitch in the same area, the same one, 4-seam fastball, literally same exact location, and expect the same result with him just looking at it. He is going to nuke that every single time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a Reds fan myself. They looked bad. Really bad. And honestly, I would not be surprised if they do get swept tonight.
I do want to point out really quickly before we move on, that stretch where it was 10-2, and then the Dodgers were like, actually, we're just going to throw whoever on the mound. That was the most fun I think I've had watching baseball in a minute. It was hilarious because all the Dodgers fans were thinking, we're going to blow it. They're like, what are you doing? Oh, that's so good.
It was one swing away from a one-run game.
It was.
Wow.
Sometimes.
I mean, that's...
Well, as of the time of recording, we've got the Yankees and the Red Sox live. So as we record on Wednesday and then release the show on Thursday, the Yankees are currently up 2-0. Is that right in the booth there, Jake? Yep, 2-0 bottom of the first for the Yankees. Ooh. So that will wrap it up for our MLB segment, and we're going to move on to another great slate of games as the NFL is back for another fantastic week. Luke, you've got the breakdown on some wild things from around the league. Let's hear it.
Can I just appreciate the weeks of football we've gotten so far? I feel like every week there's some crazy games. You know, you've got your blowouts, but I just feel like any game, you know, this is the first year I've been doing weekly picks, trying to pick weekly picks for each team. It just feels like every week it's tough because it feels like almost at this point everyone can win a game. Everyone can play upset. And, you know, this week we saw 2 Titans in the NFC, Eagles and Bucks face off. I mean, man, what a game for both of those teams. The Eagles played their brand of football. They were up 24-6 at half. They closed it out really well. They really shut the door on Tampa in the second when they came back. And, you know, I'm not worried for the Bucks at all. You know, they kind of played their first 3 games close, and so it was only a matter of time until someone like the Eagles kind of came in and shut that down. But I've got to apologize, and it's not an apology. It's just I got to rescind a take. Emeka Egbuka is Rookie of the Year, you know, Offensive Rookie of the Year at least. You know, I said a couple weeks ago I was concerned about him being stuck in a loaded room, but he is making a name for himself in Tampa Bay. Oh, my God, he looks good.
Seeing the former Ohio State wide receiver make an absolute statement in a room where you have a guy who's consistently going for 1,000 yards a season is just incredible to see.
And speaking of, you know, other great receivers, we saw, you know, Puka Nacua. He cooked the Colts on Sunday. And I'm not really like worried for the Colts at all. I know some people might be. Danny Dimes. He's been looking really well so far. They're calling him Indiana Jones. He had a kind of bad game. He threw some bad picks, but only a 1-score loss to the Rams, who have played really well so far. Tutu Atwell snapped on that 88-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter. There were some mistakes for the Colts side, but man, the Rams have looked really great so far. I think they honestly surpassed my expectations. I thought they'd be a good team out in the NFC, but they've played really well. And even with that one loss to the Eagles, that was off of special teams. So I think they're playing really well so far.
And I think the Colts have been really good. I mean, I think they would have won that game if A.D. Mitchell doesn't fumble in the end zone. That was a crazy moment, and that just swung the momentum straight to Los Angeles, and they just took it from there.
There are about 24 fantasy managers who are all cursing the name of Adonai Mitchell right now for that touchback.
It seems like it's such a common mistake. Like, I don't know, we always see those, like, highlight comps where it's like, when, like, Deshaun Jackson dropping the ball on the goal line. I feel like receivers at this point, but, understand, but, like, I get it. Like, adrenaline and, like, momentum, like, you just lose control. And speaking of lose control, oh man, did the Bengals lose control of the Broncos on Monday night. I was having so much fun watching this game as a Broncos fan. Bo Nix, he threw that one pick in the end zone. It was pretty bad, but I really liked what I saw out of the Broncos in their offense. And it was just hard watching that Bengals team. I felt almost bad at some points for the Bengals. They were just shooting themselves in the foot, whether it came to play calling, halfback draws up the middle or just 4 verticals, whether it was penalties where there was just offsides or delay of game. It just looked rough. And Joe Burrow, they talked about this on the broadcast. Joe Burrow is the commander of this offense. But, delay of game, like defensive offsides, a lot of that is coaching and play calling, which is something to look at.
Yeah, you hate to see the sort of sloppy mistakes that you would not expect out of some sort of an NFL team that is, they've proven themselves to be quite cohesive and play at the highest level, but when they're making simple mistakes like that, you just hate to see it.
Honestly, I think the Bengals need to look away from Jake Browning. Maybe one of the other 3 quarterbacks on this roster could get it done, like Mike White or, Sean Clifford, but, with the play that Jake Browning has been right now with, Jamar Chase, he's upset. You saw that on the sideline with Coach. Maybe they have to look away, someone in free agency as well. But really, I think this quarterback room, without Joe Burrow, the worst in the league.
Okay, look, let me sit here. I'm not going to be like a Jake Browning defender because it's Jake Browning. I don't have much of an opinion on Jake Browning. What I will say is that this team is too talented, both offensively and because, like it or not, they've got some really good talents on both sides of the football. They are too good to be playing this bad. A lot of their mistakes fall on Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor has consistently been terrible ever since he lost in the Super Bowl. So honestly, I don't know if Zach Taylor survives the season.
For sure.
I don't know if he is going to be the Bengals coach by week 10 because the more that, he's actually having to think as a coach because your face of the franchise is gone and it's on you to, draw something up. You can't compete. I mean, you make Bo Nix, who's played terrible all year long, look like prime Drew Brees. That just can't happen.
You're letting J.K. Dobbins, who the Chargers were trying to throw away, and he has now become the truth in the way for the Denver Broncos. But, I mean, you just can't let that happen. Speaking of the truth in the way running all over teams, gosh, you hate to see the Browns get done up like that by Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery.
Yeah, it's tough. The Lions, after dropping that game to Green Bay, they were mad, and they have shown it in all these games. They have really, come back to that, contender shape, and they really gave it to the Browns on Sunday. And, I'm glad that Dylan Gabriel's getting a start. I'm glad they're looking towards the youth. Joe Flacco can really only do so much for the ceiling of your team. And I really like the youth movement I saw in that game. There wasn't a lot of good, but Quinshon Judkins had a good game. Isaiah Bond led in receiving. So I liked seeing the rookies get good action on the field. And, man, I would not be surprised if I would see a Shedeur Sanders start at some point this season, given that quarterback room. I'd like to see what Dylan Gabriel does, but it might be time, man. It might be Shedeur time.
It might be time. You talked about rookies. We've seen rookies on both sides of the football. Mason Graham has been an absolute force on the defensive line. Aiden Huntington as well stepping up for the defense. I mean, you loved, and Carson Schlesinger named to one of the top 10 rookies in the league. You love to see the young guys stepping up and making an impact for the Browns. I mean, and they're going to be in London this week, taking on a Vikings team that just came off of a really not the best game against the Steelers, in my opinion. And I think this could be a great opportunity for the Browns to kind of bounce back and put on a defensive show. Because I mean, I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be too much of a threat against a defense that is top 3, not 3 in the league.
Yeah. Cincinnati plays Detroit, right?
I believe so.
do.
Let's.
Do we know what the over/under is on that game?
Probably like 45. No, it's 10.5.
45 is the over/under?
A lot. I think I have the tab up.
Oh,
here,
you're
but
talking about
let's move on to
45-0 Detroit. That's what I was trying to say there.
45-0 Detroit.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to our games for next week. Luke, do you want to give us the preview for what we've got coming up?
Yeah, we've got a great Thursday night football matchup, Niners-Rams. I almost picked this for my upset watch just because, the spread was pretty favored to the Rams, and, the Niners have looked pretty well this season. They kind of look shaky against Jacksonville. They've lost, and they've been in a lot of one-score games. So I think that'll be a good game just to see, how that NFC West race shapes up. Bucs Seahawks, another great game. I just talked about how good the Bucs are, and Seahawks have also looked really good. They won on Thursday Night Football last week. That should be a great game. And another sneaky one this week, Chiefs-Jags in the spotlight. Surprisingly, Chiefs, they started off slow. They just beat a Ravens team that has been riddled with injuries. Jacksonville has proven me wrong and played a lot better than I would have thought this season. So that's going to be a big game for the AFC because, whoever wins that game, puts Chiefs back in the spotlight. If the Jags win that game, I mean, do we have something to look at in the AFC South? I mean, that'd be crazy.
Quite the dark horse matchup in the AFC. And then for the Ohio teams, we've got Cleveland taking on Minnesota in Dublin, and Cincinnati will host Detroit. Moving on from our NFL segment, we are going to go to Read and React. So I'm going to read off some headlines, and I'm going to get your guys' quickest reactions off of them. So first and foremost, we've got a big news from the NFL. Giants wide receiver Malik Neighbors has torn his ACL and will be out for the remainder of the season. How do we think that's going to impact them for the rest of the season?
Well, my fantasy team is in pain because he was my first-round pick. I think it's going to be tough. We just saw Jackson Dart really shine in his NFL debut, and not having a playmaker like Neighbors is going to be tough, especially when your other options are, not Malik Neighbors. And so I think, if Dart is still the starter for the rest of the season, it's going to be a little bit harder than not having Malik Neighbors on that offense.
It would also be nice to see them continue to open up the playbook with one Mr. Cam Scatabo.
Wandale Robinson.
Moving on, we've got UFC 320. Jamey, you want to give us the breakdown on the main card?
Yeah, I've been excited since I heard this card was announced. I'm pretty sure I texted Jake probably every single week to try to get this on the show. But we're going to look at, we have the main card. The co-main events are Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. We have Merab versus Sandhagen. And then we have the next best matchup, which is Yuri versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. I'm really expecting a lot. I'll dive into the Ankalaev versus Pereira fight a little bit later. You'll see. But I think Merab's going to retain, and I think we're going to see a Khalil Roundtree victory against Yuri. But I'm just really excited. I've been excited for this fight forever. And, I mean, we look at the past fights for Merab. Merab's fought Sean O'Malley twice, and then we also seen Umar fight him, and he's won it by submission, decision, and then decision again against Sean O'Malley. But it's just been total domination by Merab. So it's going to be a fun weekend.
So who do you have in the Merab fight?
I have Merab easily, and then I have Khalil Roundtree, and then I'll get to my winner, my prediction of Ankalaev versus Pereira here in a little bit.
We'll keep that a secret for one of these later segments. Moving on, we've got an athletic article from Will Leach. Is college football field storming reckless? So they've had the conversation before. Should they ban storming the field in college football?
If they ban storming the field in college football, ban college football. Just ban it. Because, I mean, what is the point? The whole thing that makes college football so unique, so special, is the fact that There are traditions embraced with it. There are essentially cultures embraced with it. And this is part of that college football culture.
Mm-hmm.
If you take that away, what would you show that, one, you don't care what the fans think, and that, the culture means nothing to the NCAA, or the culture means nothing to the higher-ups of the College Football Playoff Committee. I think it's absolutely terrible that the SEC brought up the fine to $500,000. I think if you wanted to storm the field after beating, I don't know, sorry, East Tennessee State University, but like if you beat East TSU and you're like, hey, I want to jump on the field, do it. Like it's awesome. Everybody should rush the field at least once.
I completely agree. We do have to make the note that CBS Sports reported that there were 20 injured in the Virginia field storming. So
That was electric, though. That
Yeah,
was electric.
That was
was
the
quite-
best field storm of
Absolutely.
all time.
Absolutely, but you do unfortunately hate to see the injuries that come up with that. Moving on to our next segment, our next headline. Joe Flacco has been benched for Dylan Gabriel. How do we feel about the breaking news out of Cleveland?
I like this. I like this for Cleveland. I feel like Flacco was kind of, I don't want to say a placeholder, but he's been with the Browns last couple seasons. I thought he would be kind of a veteran leader for Gabriel and Sanders. I like that Gabriel's getting a start. I like that it's early. I like that the Browns aren't doing this mid-season. Really just shows their investment in the youth movement. They've got a big quarterback group to figure out. So I like that they're doing this early on in the season.
Get it in before the bye week, and then let the quarterback room kind of feel itself out for the second half of the season. Moving on from our read and react, we are going to a great slate of college football to break down. I mean, USC, Illinois, Ohio State, Washington, LSU, Ole Miss. I mean, let's hear it.
We got to start out, USC, Illinois. That was a great game to start out today. Luke Altmaier has proven that he is Illinois football. He can take over the game when he needs to. He can manage that team the way he needs to. And it was against a really good USC team.
Yeah.
Jordan Maeva has really, really played really well this year. And to see Illinois bounce back from getting dismantled by Indiana by taking on a good USC team and just going away, that's huge.
So it hurts for USC, but they've got Michigan and Notre Dame in the next two games. Do you think they can respond?
I don't know, because Michigan's very up and down this year. I really don't know how to get a good read on Michigan. Yeah. Notre Dame is going to beat USC by 20+. It will not be close at all. I understand that's a heated rivalry. Them two schools really, really don't like each other. But but Notre Dame is going to win that game by so many points.
Moving on to Ohio State and Washington, we have to ask the question to Evan Johnson. Why did you think this was going to be an upset? Trap game who?
Well, in all fairness, Washington did come out
slow start
on fire. It was 0-0 at the end of the first. Washington, I think they were up, 3-zip, something like that. And, Ohio had to pull away late. The difference between Ohio State and Washington's talent is night and day. Of course they were going to win that game, but Washington made it tough for them. They made them fight for it. This was a really good win for Ohio State, to be able to go into a hostile environment and play in a place that, have they ever played in Washington before?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, in one of the more hostile stadiums in America, and you just walk in there and you just physically dominate them the whole game. Julian Sayin is maybe the best freshman quarterback that we've seen since Tua. He is so good this year. And on top of that, the big thing for me is that Ohio State is really, really good at taking over a game with their defense this year. I understand that's something we say kind of year in and year out, but I think you're going to see a lot more of these 20, 25-point games from Ohio State where they're dominating.
Absolutely. So let's move on to LSU and Ole Miss. A 4-13 matchup. Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly, another classic coach rivalry. What do you got for us, Noah?
That game went exactly how you could have asked for it to go for Ole Miss. They ran the ball. They threw the ball. I think they outgained LSU by about 200 yards. They made Garrett Nussmeier look like he had never picked up a football before. And it's a really, really bad omen for LSU because they've got Bama, they've got A&M in the future. If Ole Miss gives you that much trouble, you might as well pack it up now.
Absolutely. Moving on to the big whiteout game, the Oregon upset in Happy Valley. Noah, you have this listed with the question mark. Would you call it your game of the year?
As of now, maybe. I mean, it went to 2 overtimes. That was really, really good game. Dan Lanning, I mean, he's a great coach, but he needed a signature win. There's your signature win. That is how you build a program. That is how you start your Alabama-Georgia dynasty, is you go into a top 10 school, top 3 school on arguably the hardest night to win any game, and just physically out-physical them, outplay them, out-everything them. And granted, it takes 2 overtimes, but that second overtime was hilarious. All Oregon.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure they're one of 2 schools to win that whiteout game.
Wow.
And the other one's Ohio State, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you just put Dan Lanning in arguably one of the big, like you said, the hardest environments to play in, probably in all of sports. And he goes out there and they win, and they just cause so many problems for Drew Aller and that Penn State offense.
And one thing, Dan Lanning has got the juice, dude. He saw the, I don't know if you guys saw the clip that came out where he's like, there's 107,000 of them screaming, but they're not on the field. Whew, brick walls.
So
Through it.
now that you've got your signature win for Dan Lanning and Oregon, and they've taken down a top 3 team, would you put them in your national title contention?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anybody that can walk into Penn State on whiteout night and play like that, yes. They are top to bottom really, really, really good. I'm very, very impressed with the way Dante Moore's been playing.
Yes.
And I think if they can continue to ride on that and then have Dan Lanning be the coach that he is, I don't see why they can't lift the trophy.
It'd be lovely to see that matchup because it'll probably be quite the show if Dan Lanning ends up in that one. So moving on to another top-ranked matchup with number 5 Georgia taking on number 17 Alabama. I mean, it's another SEC Classic rivalry. You love to see.
Yeah, and a lot of people were counting counting Alabama out, and that's something that you got to learn really quickly. I know that Nick Saban's not the coach anymore. You can never count out Alabama. You can't. Ty Simpson, Saban-esque quarterback. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is whenever you look in comparisons, is Kirby Smart in Alabama kind of like Ryan Day in Michigan?
Ooh.
No, because Kirby Smart wins.
They've both only won one game against that team in the history of like them being the coach. So I mean,
Is it really just one game?
they only one game.
I have it pulled up right now.
Only one game.
Kirby Smart is 1-7 against Alabama all
That's
time.
just like Ryan Day.
The one only win is in that 22 championship.
Really?
Which is interesting because a lot of people don't mention, they really, hate on Ryan Day for his losses to Michigan, but a lot, really people don't talk about those Kirby Smart losses to Alabama. So that's a really interesting point, Reece.
I do think a big part of that is the fact that Georgia and Alabama isn't necessarily a rivalry. Ohio State, Michigan is the closest thing legally to war that you can have.
On a stadium, in a stadium. It's the closest thing we've got to gladiator combat.
Yeah.
But there for like 5 or 6 years, that's the SEC championship.
Yeah.
It was Georgia versus Alabama, or maybe throw in Florida 1 year. But like other than that, it was Georgia, Alabama either one time during the regular season and the SEC championship.
And again, I think like Kirby Smart's the only Saban disciple to beat Nick Saban.
Yeah.
He might be the only one to like play him that's actually has a good team. I know Lane
that's
Kiffin,
true, yeah.
but Lane Kiffin doesn't really do that good against really anybody besides if you play LSU that last week. But
Well, yeah, Steve Sarkisian at Texas.
but
Well, moving on, we've got our games for next week. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Iowa State and Cincinnati,
I'll be at that game.
Virginia and Louisville, Miami, Florida State, Vanderbilt and Alabama. I mean, of these games, what are we real hyped for?
I'll start us off, Noah. Cincinnati will beat Iowa State at home.
I agree.
Brendan Sorsby has been an absolute animal. Whenever I went to the game 2-3 weeks ago, he was 15 for 15 with 5 touchdowns passing and 6 and then a 6 rushing touch, like 1 rushing touchdown.
Who are they playing, JP?
It doesn't matter.
Who are they playing,
It doesn't matter.
Jamie, who are
You
they
do
playing?
15 for 15 in like 200 yards and 5
Who
touchdowns.
are they playing, JB?
Like Northwestern State. But it does not matter. I mean, that is impressive to go out there against a college team, even if it's a high school team, to go 15 for 15 and look that good. It doesn't matter if you're playing Northwestern State or Alabama or Georgia, Ohio State. I feel like Cincinnati will beat Iowa State at home. Mark my words.
I do agree. I think that Cincinnati is definitely a team. They're actually favored right now. They're 1.5-point favorites. I think Cincinnati can beat Iowa State. My game to watch out for, though, Mississippi State at Texas A&M. Mississippi State was 4-0 coming into last week, and then it took overtime for them to lose to Tennessee. This team is scary. This is the definition of an SEC trap team right here. And Texas A&M hasn't looked entirely impressive. They've looked good, but they haven't looked that good. I think that Mississippi State is definitely, a team that could knock them off.
Can I just say something? I was looking through all the ranked matchups this week, and I saw Oklahoma was playing Kent State, but Kent State does not have a logo on Google. It is a plain shield because they don't have the mascot apparently. So
they're playing.
Boy,
they might be the Golden Flashes, but
we don't know.
So we're looking at this slate. We've got Florida State taking on number 3 Miami. Do we think they're going to be able to respond against a top 3 team after dropping that last matchup?
No.
I mean, they're at home.
This Miami team's good, though.
They're good,
so
but I believe in the fans at Florida State, and I believe they can make enough ruckus to where it will cause some harm for Carson Beck and that O-line.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a good game, Reese. I think it'll be closer.
I don't think the chop's gonna affect them now.
No,
I think it will.
I don't know, because I don't know. I think Miami wins that one pretty handily.
Great slate of college football for the weekend ahead. We are now going to move on for one of our last segments of the day, Upset Watch. It's everybody at the table is going to pick their favorite underdog of the week from across all sports. Last week, everybody whiffed, so let's see if we can bounce back. Everybody's going to follow the Luke Schmitt rule. Nobody under a 4.5 for football, 5.5 for basketball, 1.5 or better for soccer, hockey, or baseball. Let's hear it. Let's start with Reese. College football. What do you got for us?
I got Vandy at Bama, 10.5. Honestly, Evan said it last week. I think this is the trap game this week. They did it last year. I have full belief in Diego Pavia to do it again. He leads in both passing and rushing yards for the team. So I think he can take over this game like he did last year and really just take this game away from Bama.
We saw it described as a trap game. Noah, would you agree?
I don't know if I would agree. I do think that Alabama's going to win this one pretty handily. Vanderbilt looks good this year. Alabama also looks good this year. I think this 10.5 point spread is a pretty fair spread.
All right. Speaking of pretty decent spreads, Noah, you've got Syracuse and SMU. Let's hear it.
Well, yeah, Syracuse is a 17.5 point underdog against SMU, and if you look at their recent games, you'd think, why are you picking this? They just got beat 38-3 by Duke. They beat Clemson the week before that. Then they got pieced by Duke. And the reason for that is Syracuse's starting quarterback, Steve Angeli, tore his Achilles in their win against Clemson. And they had a new quarterback coming in who was fighting for that spot, almost got the spot over Steve before the season. And, taking a step back, it always takes a while for you to get into a groove when you've not played for 4 weeks. And what better time to do it than against an SMU team that made the playoffs last year? And I don't know if they'll make the Armed Forces Bowl this year. This team looks rough. They still got Kevin Jennings at quarterback, but what else do they have? I don't understand why Syracuse can't win this game. Not only win this game, but win this game by 1 or 2 touchdowns.
It'd be quite the big win for the Big Orange. One last college football take from the table. Luke, let's hear it.
Yeah, I got to apologize for the fact that my Luke Schmitt rule is in place here for my one Cowboys-Bears pick, and I got that wrong, so it goes to show. But this week, I really like Virginia over Louisville. Virginia is ranked. Noah, I know you're really excited for this pick.
Yes.
I don't know. Virginia really just beat FSU in such a great game, Field Storm, all that stuff. Virginia's 4-1 ranked. Louisville's 4-0, but they've only really beat Bowling Green and Pitt. So I like Virginia in this one. Jamari Taylor, running back for Virginia, has played really well. He's 5th in the nation for touchdowns. Give me the Cavs.
Sounds good. All right, one last pick for the table. Jamey, let's hear it.
Yeah, I know I said that we'd come back to it. Ankalaev has Pereira, and I got Alex Pereira. Give me Chama. He's going to win. I know he lost the first fight with Ankalaev, but he has beat Jamal Hill, Yuri, Khalil Roundtree. He's beat Izzy. He's beat all these guys, and he's going to do it again and and get back that championship.
All right, Jamey, great pick. Well, that is it for our show. We have our weekly awards for our game and player of the week. So our game of the week this week is Ohio women's volleyball with their Turn It Gold game against Buffalo at 4 p.m. on Saturday. And our Ohio player of the week is linebacker Cameron Hollabaugh. 8 tackles, 1 sack, a forced fumble, and a 71-yard interception return for a touchdown. I mean, all over the field, and a MAC defensive player of the week to throw it on top. Fantastic work. All right, well, thank you for listening to SportsBeat on WOUB. I'm your host, Connor Mallon. Joining me at the table,
Reece Merkel.
Noah Cavin.
Luke Schmitt.
Jamey Spears.
you can find us on WOUB 1340 AM on woub.org/listen. Our episodes can be found on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at SportsBeatWOUB for more digital content. We'll see you next week. This has been SportsBeat.